Hey there. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're not just going to memorize a bunch of anatomy terms. No, we're going to learn how to read a map of the most incredible territory there is, the human body. So let's dive in. You've seen those images, right? Those, crazy black and white pictures of our insides? It honestly looks like an impossible puzzle. So how in the world does a doctor or a radiologist know exactly what they're looking at from any given angle?
Well, it's not magic. It's actually a system. It's like a secret map, a shared language that lets a surgeon in Tokyo and a radiologist in Toronto see the exact same thing. And today, we're going to learn the basics of that language.
First thing we need on our map are the lines. To really understand something three-dimensional like a human body, we have to imagine slicing right through it, almost like with a perfectly flat sheet of glass. And these imaginary slices? They're called body planes. And lucky for us, there's a really easy way to remember the four main planes. You just have to think of the word soft. That stands for sagittal, oblique, frontal, and transverse. Let's break down what each of those means. So, the S is for sagittal. This is a vertical cut, right from top to bottom, that splits the body into a left side and a right side. And a great little trick to remember this is to think of the sagittal suture on your skull. That's the line that runs right down the middle, separating the left and right halves of your head. Okay, but we can get even more specific here. If that sagittal cut is perfectly down the center, creating two equal mirror image halves, we call that a mid-sagittal plane. But if the slice is off-center, giving you a bigger left piece and a smaller right piece or vice versa, that's called a parasagittal plane. And that precision is absolutely crucial when you need to pinpoint the exact location of, say, a tiny tumor. Next up, the O in soft, the oblique plane. This one's kind of the oddball of the group. It's basically any slice that isn't perfectly up and down or perfectly side to side. It's any cut that's at a weird diagonal angle. And the easiest way to remember this one? Just think, obliques are odd. They run at odd angles. Or, even better, think about your oblique muscles, right? Your abs. They're the ones that run diagonally on the sides of your stomach. Simple as that.
All right, on to the T, the transversal plane. Now, this is the only one that's horizontal. It cuts the body into a top half, which anatomically we call superior, and a bottom half, which we call inferior. Like a magician sawing a person in half. That's a transversal cut.
And the name itself is a fantastic clue. The prefix trans just means across. A transatlantic flight goes across the Atlantic Ocean. A transverse plane cuts across the body. It's just like the horizon, cutting the world into an upper and lower half.
And finally, the F in our soft mnemonic, the frontal plane. This is our other vertical plane. But unlike the sagittal one that divides left and right, this one divides the body into a front part, or anterior, and a back part, or posterior. And the memory aid here couldn't be simpler. A frontal plane literally leaves you with a front section. It's right there in the name. You might also hear it called a coronal plane, which makes sense if you think of a crown or a corona that sits on your head, separating the front from the back. Okay, so we've got the lines of our map. We have these planes that let us look at the body from any angle we can imagine. But when we make these slices, what do we actually find inside? What are these territories and regions where all our important stuff lives? And that brings us to the second half of our map, the body cavities. Now, these aren't imaginary lines anymore. These are real physical spaces inside of us that house, protect, and organize all of our most vital organs. So just take a look at this. These are the major containers inside the human body. Can you guess what any of them are, or what they might hold? These compartments are so important for keeping everything organized and, more importantly, safe. And boom, here is our map all labeled. This is going to be our guide for the next few minutes. As you can see pretty clearly, our body isn't just a chaotic bag of organs. It's this highly organized system of protective chambers. So if we zoom out, there are really two main cavities. First, you've got the dorsal body cavity. It's everything along the back of the body, and its only job is to protect our super fragile central nervous system, so the brain and the spinal cord. Then you have the ventral body cavity, which is everything in the front. This is where most of our other vital organs hang out. But let's zoom in a little bit closer. Both of these huge cavities are actually broken down into smaller, more specialized compartments. Let's take a quick tour, shall we? So if we look at that dorsal cavity first, it splits into two. You've got the cranial cavity, that's the space inside your skull protecting your brain. And then you have the vertebral cavity, that long tunnel running down your spine that protects the spinal cord. Then, if we look at the much larger ventral cavity, it's split by that big muscle, the diaphragm. Above it is the thoracic cavity, holding your heart and lungs, and below it is the abdominal pelvic cavity, which is home to all your digestive and reproductive organs.
So, what's the big deal? Why does any of this matter? Because this shared map, these planes and cavities, it creates a universal language. It allows a scientist to describe the precise location of a discovery with zero ambiguity. It lets a surgeon tell their team exactly where to make an incision. It is, and this is not an exaggeration, the foundation of modern medicine. So let's just do a quick recap. The planes, they're the imaginary slices we use to get a clear view, and you can remember them with SOFT. The cavities, they're the real physical containers that protect all our organs. And when you put them together, they create the fundamental map we use to navigate the entire human body. When you think about it, this whole system is just an invisible map that brings order to something that's incredibly complex. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other invisible maps, what other systems of organization or rules are bringing order to the world around you every single day?